Hello there. Welcome to day 172 of 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tom Not. We're here talking about black issues in America. Talking about resources, uh, success habits, politics, economics, civil rights, all the above. We got 400 years or so of slavery to look at. Jim Crow, semi-slavery, segregations, and uh, a lot of things to wade through to convince us where black people stand in America, really, at this moment. You know, uh, if with all things being equal, are black folks participating equally in America? I've got to come up with a thesis phrase to really build on and stand on a position from which to launch one of these days. But there's just so much to look at. Two major thoughts became apparent to me some time ago as I began this year-long project. First thought is about the mind of America. That first thought has two ideas attached to it. First idea is for the mind of black people. Are black people still living a conditioned slave life? That's an interesting question. As you know, we're not actively confined, and we're not compelled. We're not tortured, whipped, and raped anymore. Um, but does that mean we are free and participating? Does legislation, laws, amendments guarantee that black people are no longer experiencing a life of coercion, privation, things of that nature? You know, and from that, what's it mean for the mental orientation of black folks in America? Some important things to think on as you go about your daily business. Second thought, the second part of that first thought, the mind of America is for white minds, privilege, entitlement, favor in America, freedom of movement, numbers. You know, it's an overwhelmingly white population, and black people are like sequestered into spaces. If not physically, economically. And not only that, we have no ownership. It's the land is owned by whites, and how does that play out? How does white thinking play out? I talk occasionally about sitting in a classroom. I went to predominantly white high school, I'll say, and I'm sitting in this classroom. Of course, I didn't know it then, uh, but I'm having a different experience in America than my white counterparts. You know, I'm sure many of my white counterparts went on. I feel they went on to have some successes in life just for the color of their skin. It opened doors. They're coming from a certain orientation with family, where they grow up, what kind of things go on in their neighborhoods versus what kind of things went on in my neighborhood, things like that. Now, I'm not from the hood or anything like that, but I'm guessing that my townie experience was much different from what um, these white kids experience in their home neighborhoods, the spaces these kids had to live in, these things. And it just, does that mean that does it just perpetuate itself? You know, are things equal in America mentally between blacks and white folks? We can be in the same space yet having a totally different experience. And then my second thought is for financial literacy, understanding how money works, being faithful, honest. We're going to look at some of that today, getting back to Uncle Tom's Cabin. But just, understand that various kinds of literacy gives an individual access to, um, you know, greater opportunities, um, a higher level of access, to greater wealth, you know, uh, political power, understanding how things work. So, but specifically, financial literacy and using those tools, those terms, to be at least more mindful. Um, maybe if we're economically challenged right now, not a whole lot of money coming in and all that, some financial literacy can make us allocate our resources more effectively. We can have a better hope for being in a position to go to greater heights economically in America with some fundamentals in our foundation, beyond savings accounts and bank accounts and knowing how to do that. And God forbid you use check cashing places, people gleaning off little bits and chunks of your hard work. You already give the government off the top, upwards of 19, 20, 22% of your earnings, gross earnings. So and you don't want some other agency snatching at uh, your hard work, because you may have some challenges getting a bank account, things like that. Cleaning up your financial life, or if you're not addressing some financial amendments, know why you're doing it. Explain that. I've got some issues out there, and I realize, granted, I made mistakes. Maybe we'll get uh, to making some financial amendments in the future, but you guys keep snatching at me and snatching at me. I can't get my foundation in order to effectively address the issues I have with you. You can't keep stumbling me down the road expecting me to get you paid off or whatever. You got to put it on hold for a while. Catch up with me later when I'm in a space where I'm doing better. I don't advocate that, but that's what I got to do right now. Uh, you know, understanding, these people ain't broke. They're selling debt. You got to understand what they're doing with your debt. They sell your debt and all that, and how they make money off interest, how the principal is not as important as you think. It's something you want to see amortized over time, of course. But they're interested in consistent interest payments. They'll let you pay interest for the rest of your life. You'll end up paying some bill with interest. You'll end up paying the principal 2 and 3 times, as much as 2 and 3 times, uh, as you're working through that relationship with a lender or a bank. But you got to understand that. So now you got to do that so you can make some informed choices financially. Financial literacy, very important. I'm very uh, it's one of my passions. I've seen people, black individuals in the media, talking about how their financial literacy gave them access to greater wealth. You know, you want that to happen. At least have some financial mentors. If you don't understand stuff, get some people in your life that do, that can help you. I'm inspired by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson, and I've read 3 of his works. Um, we have referenced these works heavily. This is what his works inform this year's journey to a great degree. I was going to start a series on leadership suggested by Dr. Anderson, but then I realized we hadn't checked in on old Tom in a little while, so we're going to get back to that to find out what's going on with old Tom today. But first, let me just show you some resources from Dr. Anderson, a Black History reader. 101 questions you never thought to ask. Black labor, white wealth, search for power and economic justice, and Dr. Anderson's national plan to empower Black America. Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com and the Heritage Institute in Washington, D.C. Behind me, you'll see the hashtag #US2 symbol, and you'll find Black women there supporting one another, conversing. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, for it's online there for kind of a Black Facebook experience. It's World Wide Web. If you have not found your voice or anyone resonating with your issues, do what I did, start your own. You know, although these issues are all over the place, but I had a specific idea in mind. Obviously, if you see the 100 or so videos so far. Now, with that, we also want to we have story time. We're going to have story time today and tomorrow. Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work, and we look at the life of a specific slave named Tom, but we look at the peripheral. There's a lot of other lives in this periphery that are foundational to the plot and story and how it moves along. And so we look at slave masters, some other acquaintances that he had, and some of his slave acquaintances are on the run. He's left his family so far. He's getting kind of injected into a new situation with plantation. So we just check in, see how that goes. From her text, Harriet Beecher Stowe's text, it does inform some movements in theater and the media and things like that. So it's good to see how her story. It gives us an opportunity, maybe to touch on some subjects we don't talk about as often as I would like to here at Racial Change. All right, again, I'm Tom Slyback. Listen, this is day 172, and we're looking at Uncle Tom's Cabin, chapter 18. This is going to be part 1. It's about, we're looking specifically at Ophelia's experiences, where it seems like Harriet Beecher Stowe has this burden to give us as much information on Ophelia's character as we can glean. What we have so far is, she's coming from Vermont. She's St. Clare, our cousins. Ophelia and St. Clare are cousins, and she's coming from Vermont to help with little Eva and Marie St. Clare, because Marie St. Clare is just an extreme narcissist and apathetic to the household and all things like that. she's problematic. St. Clair is going to, Augustine St. Clair is going to remain true, excuse me, to his vows and not divorce Marie. He's going to hold on and stuff like that. You know, St. Clair's distracted with a lot of other things. He likes to gamble and drink and goes out and things like that, which is an interesting. That is kind of the way that the chapter introduces itself. Ophelia is the main subject of this chapter, but Harriet Beecher Stowe gives us some foundational information about St. Clair that's important in understanding Ophelia's demeanor in the household. So we left chapter 18. Tom Loker has been shot. And remember, he was chasing George, Eliza, and little Harry. And they had a lot of action scene on a rocky precipice, and there's gunfire, and people falling, and drunken uh, uh, groups of men chasing runaway slaves and all that. So Tom Loker is injured. His escort and buddies abandon him. And the spiritual altruism and benevolence of the escapees takes over, and they take Tom Loker to a Quaker home to get mended. So the chapter opens up with Tom feeling like Joseph. He's reflecting on Joseph of the Bible. If you remember Genesis, Joseph sold into slavery by his brothers, but quickly rises up the ranks to become, heads of households and actually second in command of maybe the most powerful nation on the earth at the time, Egypt. So Tom's feeling like that because he shows himself faithful. He's not drinking. He doesn't drink at all. He's a teetotaler. He's sober. He's faithful with the money and resources. This St. Clair loves this, and he gives Tom more and more responsibility to the chagrin of the house butler, Mr. Adolph, another black slave, but the one who is the recipient of a lot of privilege in the St. Clair home. Here's my stress on financial literacy. Back then even, this financial literacy that Tom has, it promotes him. It allows him to move in the system much more freely than his counterparts who pocket money, don't return change, and all that. These are just rudiments and fundamentals of financial literacy. But you see, it's a value to the slave masters at the time. The chapter goes on a portion where St. Clair really ties one on, and it takes Tom and Mr. Adolph all their energy to get St. Clair back home and tidy, clean him up a little bit. He's just plastered drunk from excesses. This prompts Tom, and we know Tom is he's extremely pious. I'm divided about this character's piety because on the one hand, it's very commendable, laudable, but then on the other hand, it's a form of control by white power at that time. The slave isn't going to be exposed as much or stress liberties, freedoms, and all that, unless it's a freedom to serve the white power, the white establishment, the white controlled institution. this institution of slavery created by European whites for whites and is administered by whites. Whites are the recipients of all the benefits of this system. So, religion is partially a tool. There's liberty. The slave does find comfort, rightfully. I mean, God, relationships with a higher power, all that is real, but it's sad to see it um, used as a tool of control, rather than something that puts everyone on an equal plane and gives liberty um, and freedoms to everyone. So that's my little division there. Anyway, Tom's piety uh, drives him. Remember, and he has a Christ-like, if I can use that, a Christ-like piety. It's agape love. It's sacrificial to everyone. He corrects people who say bad things about the white folks and things like that. Even his abusers and oppressors. Tom is able to find a measure of love. That's an interesting character. You know, I'm not there. I'm not there yet. Don't know if I ever will be. Tom eventually confronts St. Clare on his drinking, St. Clare's lack of piety. On the Shelby plantation, Tom's former masters, there was a religion. There was more, say, decency to it in respect. But St. Clare, he's kind of been born with a golden spoon. He's undisciplined, and he doesn't care about that. Tom, finally, it just pushes Tom to the edge, and Tom confronts him. And Tom says, "Look, you're kind to everyone. I love it here, and all this stuff. There's no stress, but there's one person that you're just killing and destroying." And he says, "It's you, St. Clare." So Harry Beecher Stowe presents Tom with tears in his eyes. Tom's on his knees, pleading with his master for his master to straighten out, clean up, fly straight. Your soul is in jeopardy, is Tom's highest concern. Uh, St. Clare's like, I'm not worth all that, and that's what you kind of expect from like kind of addiction mode from an individual. No self-worth. I know, like when I was strung out all heavily, it's addiction is not something that builds self-esteem in a person. I don't care who they are, whether they're recreational, if they're in denial about the severity of what they're into in addiction, they're still like, you know, uh, they're still challenged in what it is that's going on in their life. So St. Clare has no self-worth around that. He's lifting Tom up. Stop crying. I'm not worth all this and stuff. So that's some background on St. Clare. Now this is important because the story switches to Ophelia, his cousin. His cousins come down to kind of clean the house up and bring order and stuff like that. So that the master of the house is undisciplined, and everybody's kind of willy-nilly doing what they want in that space. Ophelia is more a conservative, ordered, whatnot, and these things are very important to her. How they transpire, how they um, how how things move in her life. That she values that. So there's going to be this tension between St. Clare's this unorganized life versus Ophelia's need for order and security. She values this. And it comes to a head as she's going to go from the house she's intending to go through the house, top to bottom, get it organized so she knows how things are situated, what's going on in the space, all that. She takes it on herself. After all, that's what St. Clare brought her there for. So she's on this mission, you know. And as with any space that has a lot of activity, a lot of different moving parts, there's always a person who's kind of dug in, set in their ways, that has been there for a while, who wants things the way they want it. And that person in St. Clare's home is going to be the head cook named Dinah. So Dinah, she's got wind of this white lady from the north. And of course, she's beholden, all black slaves are beholden to white people, as the white people are better than them, the white people are the masters. Okay. Anyway, Dinah she gets wind of this lady from up north going through the house and stuff like that. But Dinah is set in her ways and says, this is my kitchen. I do this the way I will. And the kitchen is described, it's chaos to an outside observer, but Dinah knows what it is. It's like, think of your space, your room, maybe an area of clutter, or maybe you're a neat freak, whatever. It's your space. You know where it is. If there's empty candy wrapper there and condiments over here, and drinks over there, that's your space. Your reading materials, study, it's there. You don't want anybody coming in, straightening up, and organizing and cleaning up, because you'll never find anything, because everything's out of order. You have your space. Dinah digs in her heels, and it comes to a head. Ophelia saves the kitchen for last. There's no indication in the story why that is. Maybe it's just the most important part, and the kitchen at that time is filled, has Dinah smoking a pipe, and Dinah is supervising a group of people, snapping peas, cleaning vegetables, preparing meals and stuff. So there's a lot of activity in there, so maybe that's why Ophelia would wait till the last. But Ophelia's headstrong, she needs to go in there. It brings kind of a clash of the titans in there, because Ophelia, on one hand, she wants to bring order into what appears chaotic. Dinah has everything where she wants it, and it's fine with her. Dinah has their smoking tobacco and condiments in the same space. The rolling pin to roll out the biscuits are under Dinah's bed. Fine. Unwashed rags that have wrapped meat share the same drawer, close a drawer. Oh, with with great cheese graters and things. It's that kind of space, And from that area comes great meals on time. Nobody goes hungry, So St. Clare, undisciplined as well, is perfectly fine with the arrangement. You know, he's not going to mess with it. So we're going to come back tomorrow and see how this clash, because Dinah doesn't want change. Ophelia wants order out of chaos. Let's see. We'll see tomorrow what happens with that. I'm Thomas Nyback. It's day 172 of 365 days towards racial change. I will see you tomorrow.